Walker, it is a joy to have you today.
Thank you.
What is one of your toughest obstacles you've had to face?
Ooh, toughest obstacles that I have faced in business. About 5 years ago, we picked up, my family and I, we have 4 children, and we picked up and moved from East Tennessee, from Knoxville, Tennessee, to the Dallas metro. And it was a tricky transition, and I had a choice at that time. Was I going to kind of restart? Because, you know, when you build as an entrepreneur, you build a network and where I was. And so in the area I was very connected and had launched many different programs and was called in even with the UT Lady Vols programs and sports programs to speak as a chaplain for visiting teams, and just a lot of stuff that we did there, as well as my coaching business. And when we moved here, as you know, if you don't form connections other than just where you are locally, but if you don't form connections, you don't have them. And so it was kind of a famine at that time, and I had a decision, because I think we're faced with this a lot as entrepreneurs of, am I going to muscle it again and push forward and grow my business again. And I, with having the children and establishing a whole new lifestyle, it was tricky, but I really pushed in. And that's when you have to know your why. You know, why am I doing this? And you have to really know, what am I doing this for, and what's my end result, what's my goal. And I had to really push into that again, and really start from, as far as local students and coaching, start from zero, you know, in this area, because we knew no one, no family, and we moved for different reasons. But so I had to start then and rebuild, and that was tricky. And I think a lot of us face those times as entrepreneurs, you know, where it just kind of, we build and we build, and now I'm into 20 years of coaching, and it came down to nothing, and nothing locally, and I had to rebuild again. And so that was a tough obstacle for me to handle, and a hurdle to jump, but we jumped it.
Well, what I find interesting is how in the world, and we were talking before, your kids are close, and I mean close.
Yes.
16 months apart for 4 kids.
Yeah.
That's not work. That's a second job.
Oh, yes, it is. It is a second job. You know, we have to wear, as women entrepreneurs, we have to wear so many hats, and we have to wear them well. And you have to know when to wear the right one. You know, if I'm having a business meeting with another, you know, a gentleman business entrepreneur, I don't bring in a bunch and talk about family and all that so much as it. But if I'm connecting with another woman who understands it and how we have to navigate that, then I wear that hat a certain way and bring that in. But it's a lot to navigate, yes, and I think a lot of us understand the pressures that we face to juggle the home lifestyle as well as business, and it's not always easy. And we have to know our priorities. We have to know our big rocks, what matters most, and we have to be able sometimes to shift real quick and say, you know, I thought I was doing this today, but this is a kind of a boom, I need to be present for, you know, that child or the situation, so let me shift real quick. But the ins and outs as we navigate is takes work. But if you know your priorities, you know what's most important. And in the end, you know, sometimes I've had to not work with a client or something because I had to shift to make my priority number one, and I was okay with that. You know, it's okay sometimes to maybe lose a business deal if necessary, if I know that my child has something at that moment and they need me present more. And I learned to be okay with those moments, and then to realize when family, it wasn't an emergency and you can wait, that can wait, and I have something to do here that I need to do. So knowing how to juggle that and be okay with that internally is important.
How did you get okay with that internally?
Good question. You know, let's see. So I've been coaching and in business for 20 years, and my oldest is 16. I remember strongly one day, and I was still in Tennessee. She was 10. My oldest daughter's name is Lyric, Lyric, Lyric. And
Love it. I love it. A musical family.
yeah.
Love it.
And so she was 10. And I remember just being overwhelmed with the dreams of my heart, you know, the dreams. And I'll be 100% real. I was not someone who grew up thinking I want to be a stay-at-home mom and raise my kids. I was not, though that's a beautiful thing to do. But I always had big dreams of business or performing or, you know, different things of that nature. And she was 10, and so that meant I had a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I was, you know how it is, you just feel overwhelmed. And you see big things, but you're faced with the now. And I remember this thought just came to me so strong, and it said, and the thought was, in 10 years, in 1 decade, can you give me one more decade to push with your kids, to be involved and invested with the kids as a big rock, as a priority, as one of the number one focuses. 10 more years, and then they're gone. Can you give 10 years? Because if you divide up your life in decades, so to say, with kids, by the 2 decades, they're 20 and they're off doing their thing. And then I have all these other decades left. So that thought, for whatever reason, really penetrated my heart, and it made me be okay with thinking, right now it feels like it's going to be forever till they're grown and exited, but it's only 10 more years, and then they're gone, and then I can be full force on my business. And that thought has helped me, and I don't, maybe it'll help someone else, because when you're in a moment, it feels overwhelming, and like it's just, you're so surrounded, and that it's going so slow, but it goes fast and it passes. And so when I kind of re-engaged with that thought as a mom and as a businesswoman, that it's just this little bit of block in my lifespan that I have left. And it doesn't mean they get 100% everything and all of my focus, because we have to be healthy women, individuals, but it does mean that I realize that at those big moments, I want to be present and be there. And if that means my business can't grow as fast, then I'm going to be okay with it, because one day I will push on that as hard as I can, because that will be my main focus. So that was what helped me. It's more of a thought trigger that I pull on. And now, my oldest, she's 16, she's driving, and she'll be exiting the house pretty soon, so it does.
That makes it so much easier. And one of the things I love what you said is that you bring yourself back to the present. What small step can I take today? And a lot of the women that I deal with, they are overwhelmed. Life has been overwhelming. And there's one thing that brings you back to the present. And that really hit home for me. And the kids, I really blinked, and I swear to God, I don't know why my kids I always say, how did you guys get so old and I stayed so young? I don't
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I have a daughter, and I know I don't look like it. My daughter's 32. I'm like, what happened? Who's her mother?
I love that. I love that. When you said about small steps, and something that I tell my students or my clients, I work with teenagers as well as adults. So students I call more the younger ones, but is that small steps travel. Small steps travel. If you think just you take a tiny step in a direction, and it doesn't feel like a big step or a big move, but if you keep taking that small step daily, within a year, where are you going to be? Within 5 years, 10 years, those small steps are traveling you somewhere, and where are they traveling you? What small steps are you taking? And it's like a ship, if you're navigating a ship, and you're here and you're supposed to end up here, and if you turn that just a tiny bit, at first you're not going to realize it, but if you keep going, eventually you can veer off course, or you can stay on course. So as you mentioned, the women who are listening, those small steps matter. And sometimes we feel guilty almost that it's not big steps, big leaps, big bounds, it's okay. If you can find the small steps and say, I'm going to take this step today. I remember when they were young, and I would get them all napping miraculously, and I would go to the office, and I would pour my heart out onto this project for an hour. And that's all I got, pretty much. It's just an hour. You know how many hours it can take. So it took so long to finish the project. But I remember, I thought, if I can just create that time every day, it made me feel better. It makes you feel better when you push on a dream, but it also released me from pressure to say, that I had to just get it all done at once. And so small steps travel.
Wow, that is so beautiful. You also, and from what I've read, you have quite a wide variety of clientele. You talked about resilience and taking the small steps. How do you keep your ego intact when you're dealing with celebrities?
It comes down to knowing who you are, and I firmly believe this, that regardless of people's race, their creed, their socio status, religion, all that. Regardless, we're all people. We're all people, and to be able to treat someone, a celebrity, or treat someone who is totally unknown the same because you're a person who has value and dreams and desires, and people are people when you boil it down. People are people. I'm a person, no matter who I've met, who I've worked with, and just the same as a celebrity, as someone who has never done any of that. It's a person has value regardless of anything. So that's what I remind myself, and it helps you to walk into rooms and where you walk into a room, you're either going to shrink or you're going to expand, and it's based on your mindset. You can walk into a room and look and say, wow, I feel intimidated, I should not be here, and you almost shrink. Or you can walk into a room and say, I'm just as valuable as everybody else in this room, I have just as much to give in the way I'm talented and gifted as everyone else, and you begin to expand, and people, they pick up on that. So that's the one way. I just remember that's how I live. If you're meeting someone in Starbucks or meeting someone on a huge stage, they're people and they're the same, and they deserve the same amount of respect.
Yes, and that is such a beautiful thing, because the reason why I ask that question is because a lot of times I think some of the people I know, they put themselves below someone who they think on the outside has this, or this. Mm-hmm. And we don't know anybody else's story. We are really on the same playing field. We might think we know somebody else's story, but we don't. We don't know what goes on. We don't know what it took them to do whatever. And that is so incredible. What are your favorite quotes?
Favorite quotes. One that I love is that the man at the top of the mountain, we can say woman, the man at the top of the mountain did not fall there. I love that quote because it talks about, I've had some real boisterous people say, well, maybe they rented an airplane, or they flew their jet and they parachuted it out and they landed on the mountain, but let's just dismiss that. But the idea is, yeah. Every successful story has taken work. It has taken work, and when you look at someone, it's important that we don't envy, in essence, because it's so easy to say, oh, I wish I had that. And I tell you, the work that goes in behind the scenes that nobody sees. When you're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or tall, high mountains, you have to train yourself to climb it. In fact, they'll trek up and then they have to go back down, so their body acclimates, and they trek up a little more, and you've climbed that mountain over and over before you ever reach it. And so if we have to go up a few steps forward, a few steps back, it's okay. It takes work. So that's one of the quotes. And another one is, what do you do when there's nowhere to turn? You drive straight ahead. Wow. You just drive straight ahead. You figure it out. And I like that one, because sometimes you feel trapped in business. You feel stuck. You feel like I really don't know what to do. And I think the most important thing at those times is to say, I won't quit. I'm not going to give in. I will not cave in and quit. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I might have to get a new skill. I might have to, collaborate with someone new. I don't know, but we can do it, So if you feel there's no way to turn, take a deep breath and say, the one thing I won't do is give up. I'm going to go forward in some way. And doing that, you will break through.
Wow, that is so on target. Is there any parting words? Unfortunately, our time seems to be zipping by.
Fast.
Any tips for those of maybe some women who are kind of lost a bit, overwhelmed?
Yeah. You're not alone, and when you feel lost or overwhelmed, it's so easy to want to regress and to think, I'm the only one dealing with this, and nobody knows, nobody understands, and it's not true. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed almost every day, but it's the question of, when you feel like that. When I have felt like that, one thing I make sure I do is I take inventory really fast of what am I listening to and what am I watching. Who am I going to for advice? What music am I filling my mind with? What shows am I feeling? Because when we feel overwhelmed, it's easy to want to watch things that aren't super motivating, listen to music that's kind of mellow and down, and even sometimes talk to people who are just going to help us feel like that. But instead, I quickly take inventory and say, what music can hype me up right here? What could I read that would encourage and motivate me? And who can I talk to that they understand me, but they're close enough to me to push me forward and say, hey, it's going to be okay. You can do this. Don't give up. And so quickly take inventory of what are you feeding on? And if it's not what's going to help you move forward, choose something else. And it's powerful. It's powerful what we put in us in those moments. And so that would be one suggestion.
Choose. I love the word you said, choose. And we do have the choice. And every day we make a choice, even if we think we don't, we are. We are choosing. And that's well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here. I wish there was more time. I mean, you are so dynamite and so on target with things. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And just hope that everyone experience amazing moments and breakthroughs because they might not come every day, but they do come.
They do. And thank you for offering us that hope.
You're welcome. You're welcome.